Hey, and welcome to the Behavioral Business Blueprint, where we dive into the world of behavioral health entrepreneurship. We have a special guest with us today. This person has done a lot over the past few decades, like start and successfully exit a company, co founded a few other companies, which we'll touch on in this interview. This person is a business strategist, and I'm going to do my best not to overwhelm her with too many questions today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Miss Sarah Troutman with us.
You got it. You got it.
I was practicing that name. I did not want to mess it
Mhm.
up.
Yeah, it's perfect. Good job.
So my first question I like to ask started off with all guests, especially those that are in entrepreneurship. When do you sleep? Because you have a lot going on. I'm looking at your LinkedIn and I'm just looking
Yeah,
at the years, and I'm
yeah.
like, when do you find time to sleep?
That's such an interesting question that you ask because I am obsessive about sleep, obsessive with sleep.
Hmm.
And I think part of this is, I mean, if you ever read about like super, successful people, whether those are CEOs or just like, regular moms or whomever, there's always some consistencies across these people, no matter like who they are, what they're doing. And it is like really good habits to support everything in their lives. And one of those habits is sleep. So I have a sleep schedule in my iPhone. Anybody knows that if you try to talk to me after 10 p.m. on any night, even Saturday or Sunday, I am not available because I am sleeping. So yeah, the sleep thing, yeah, is really important to me. I prioritize it to make sure that I can get a lot done when I am up. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day. That's also a habit of a lot of people that are pretty high achievers is we are morning people. We're up before everybody else. I'm at the gym, I'm having coffee, I'm reading the paper, and so I'm like ready to, start my day usually at like 7:30 a.m. And that's when I think a lot of people are just getting going. And I have already been like up and, I got my coffee. So
I
yeah, sleep.
can I totally agree with you because I am an early riser. I do go to bed a little bit earlier. It's between 8 and 10,
Yeah.
but I get up between 3 and 4:30.
Hmm.
But by 7 o'clock, I'm just like, gosh, I wish everybody else was up so we can have these meetings. Why do I have to wait till
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the afternoon
Yeah.
to have this?
Yeah. Well, and I think especially for people, like I'm a single parent and my son is in high school and like he just started driving. And so there's a little, it's different than when he was, younger. And so part of the getting up early that was a necessity because if I wanted to get anything done, it had to be before he woke up because it was like getting ready, breakfast, school, drop offs, all of that kind of stuff. And now it's just like a habit. And I really enjoy my morning where I can just like have a chance to like read the newspaper. Of course, online, I'm not like so old that I'm like, I get it delivered, Arthur. Like, no, I have my digital account to the, like New York Times, like Wall Street Journal, whatever. Um, but it's just a great way to just kind of like start the day and have a chance to kind of ease into it versus just being like hit automatically with like all the things you have to do.
So one of the things that I saw you have a consulting firm, and I'm just reading it off of LinkedIn. It
Yeah.
looks like it was 2014 through about 2019. Is that
It
when
was
you
2004. I had a business that I ran for 15 years. 15 years. Yeah.
for? And I guess you did. Is this all ABA related or just working
Yep.
with kids with autism?
ABA. Yeah.
Okay,
ABA, mostly children on the autism spectrum, but also some teens and adults. Yeah.
so you exited the company before it
Hmm.
was popular. I would say it wasn't very well known to private investment companies. Um, And my question is, what made you start it? Because right now I see a lot of people just getting into it. I see private equity companies
Hmm.
because they just see a dollar sign. I know they also want to do well, do something good for the kids. But you see other people that are even BCBAs or just small or just business people that want to get
Hmm.
into it because they see the dollar sign. But you started when this was not even a thing to sell,
Yeah,
like
it was not a thing.
2004.
Yeah, no. When I started, so my business, I started it in my kitchen in East Oakland in the Bay Area. And at that time, I mean, that's real. That's where it was in my kitchen. At the time, you could provide behavior analytic services, especially in the state of California, either through school districts, or California has a great law called the Lanterman Act, which is an entitlement act for individuals with developmental disabilities. And it entitles these individuals to supports for their lifetime. And so the Lanterman Act has created this whole system called regional centers in California. And I think there might be 21 or 22. They're all nonprofits, independently operated from each other, but they represent specific counties, and they take the Lanterman funds from the state, and then they support the folks that qualify for those in the county or counties that they operate in. And so, yeah, I mean, when I started in '04, I worked in school districts. There's a designation in California. If you have a private company, you can become certified to be a non-public agency, meaning that public school districts can contract with you, or you could even become a non-public school. But my company was a non-public agency. And then I started working in the regional center system about 2005, and you could provide just like behavior consult to all types of different folks, and like that was it. There was no insurance. Behavioral health was not even like a glint in anyone's eye. It was mostly like education or the Department of Developmental Disabilities.
Did you see it getting that big, starting in your kitchen? Because I also hear that as a common theme of either I started in my garage, my kitchen. I think
Hmm.
I started when I had a business, when I had the ABA business in a small office in our
Hmm.
house. But
Yeah.
did you see it just getting as big as it did, or is it just over time the vision got bigger?
I know. And I think for so many people, especially because I was a behavior analyst first, I've been board certified for 20 years. I was
Oh,
the
wow. Wow.
1,642nd certificate ever. And now there are over 66,000 BCBAs worldwide. I mean, that like blows my mind. But I think for so many folks like myself, it wasn't necessarily a strategic vision to grow. It was really just in response to the demand for services. And so, especially in California, once SB 946 passed, which was the autism health insurance mandate, it completely changed the landscape because before I was operating mostly on an IDEA mandate, right? So, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, what are people with IEPs entitled to? FAPE, free and appropriate public education, which is basically just saying, like, hey, we're going to make sure you can access your education. But when we moved into the medical model, what that did was it raised the bar. So instead of kind of like a floor of access, it was a ceiling, because the whole point of the medical model is to provide restorative supports so people can access all of the things in their lives. And so this, I mean, created, incredible additional demand in California and across, the country as all of these laws have been passed. But it also allowed folks to be able to access services in much more intensive service durations and dosages. So instead of, maybe like an hour or two a week that you might get from a school district for support, or in the regional center system, maybe you could get 10 hours a week. When we moved into the medical necessity kind of like framework under, the autism health insurance mandate, we had kids that, depending on the assessment and kind of their own, profile, could potentially get up to 40 hours a week of service. And that was a game changer, but then really occasioned this very intensive demand. And so if you look at the growth of board certified behavior analysts on the BACB website, they have all this
Hmm.
demographic data, and you can like kind of see, like, I always tell people I was certified during like the lowlands of behavior analysis. I think I know everyone that was also certified at '04. But you see the most rapid growth has been in the, the last decade, and especially in the last 5 years. And that is a direct response to autism health insurance mandates and to the demand that those created.
Yeah, and see, I was certified in 2020, February 20th.
Mhm.
And honestly, I started in 2017, but I
Mhm.
didn't hear about ABA until 2016. And my undergrad and master's is in special education. So I was
Me
kind of
too.
shocked.
Me
Okay.
too. Yeah.
I was shocked when I heard of something. They're like, oh, this thing called ABA. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I've been in this field and I thought I knew everything,
Yeah.
related to therapies, for students with autism. So I was kind of shocked. So when you talk about, when you look at that curve, because I can see the
Mhm.
map in my head of what it looks like of everybody being certified. So let me ask you this: if you're a small company, you're
Mhm.
looking to grow, whether ABA or some behavioral health company,
Mhm.
what would be like that one piece of advice you would give to grow?
Focus on being the best service provider. And when I say that, to me, exceptional service providers are providers that have consistent outcomes for their patients or clients or kids, whatever you want to call them, and have consistent high performing staff. Because, like, we know this, like, you can't get the great outcomes if you don't have really good staff. I mean, because this is a deeply human service. I mean, this is like, we're in it with each other, we're supporting each other, we're training each other, we're talking to each other in service to the recipients of ABA. And there will, I think, be more and more challenges around what constitutes effective service. I think there's a lot of concerns right now, especially from funders, in terms of how much is being spent on the reimbursement of specifically ABA services within, the commercial and Medicaid environment relative to, the outcome. There's a lot of variability across, providers. Also, our certification is a minimum standard. We don't have a subspecialty requirement for folks in autism, even though most people work within that population. So to me, if you want to be a really good business, no matter what your size, the sole focus you should have is doing exceptional work. And that requires you to have exceptional training and exceptional staff.
And I could definitely agree with that. So knowing everything that you've gone through with, having, the clinic and working with kids with autism in the past, how does that just affect your trajectory of life or where you saw yourself going? Because I'm sure when you started, at the kitchen table, you didn't see where
Mhm.
you are now.
No, I was 27 when I started, 27 years old. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
So how's that how's that affected, your growth? Are you looking now into other kind of businesses, or are you just going to stay within the behavioral health or just ABA world?
So, what I've been able to do, especially over the last 10 years, is get a lot of experience working with a lot of different companies. And I've been able to do that both through the work I've done in the kind of association piece of behavior analysis. So I served as the president of the California Association for Behavior Analysis. I was a founding board member of the Council of Autism Service Providers. I have done a lot of public speaking in support of other associations across the country. And so that's just helped me to establish really uh, broad relationships across different, states, different types of service providers. And then since I sold my company in June of 2019, I've done a lot of work more as a, kind of consultant and strategic advisor for both clinician founder businesses, for businesses that were acquired by, either private equity or investors. And now my primary focus is at the board level. So I'm on the board of directors of two exceptional businesses that I, you know, love through and through. One of them is located in Atlanta. One of them is located here in Phoenix, where I live now. And so, as a board member, I am actively involved in strategic planning, leadership development, clinician development, and that's been really fun for me. I don't need to be in like the driver's seat anymore since I did it for such a long time. But if you look at behavior analysis, the vast majority of folks in the industry, both at the kind of RBT level and the behavior analyst level, are under the age of 35, which means they're very early in their career. And there are not a lot of folks like me that are more, mid to late career that have a lot of like wisdom acquired, skills acquired over time. And so what you see right now in the industry is sometimes I like to say it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. It's really young folks bringing in really young folks. Everyone's kind of trying to figure it out. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of emotions, so many emotions. But for me, as a board member of these organizations, I can really support the growth and the rapid growth of the clinicians and in leadership team. And that's what I really love doing. And then I have like a side creative endeavor because I have always been someone that's very much into like fashion, beauty, etc. And so I've been also working on my own jewelry line. I created a jewelry brand that I'm launching next month on March 8th, which is International Women's Day. And so that's been just super fun for me to have the opportunity to work on something that is completely different from behavioral health because I've been in this, for 27 years. And so it's nice to kind of like use a different part of my brain, but also to be extremely humbled by what I don't know in a totally different industry.
I'm sure you have some good connections with everything you have going on, but you said
Yeah.
something about all the new businesses coming into ABA, and you
Hmm.
said something about emotions. And I know
Yes.
I've learned over time you have to control your emotions because I mean,
Hmm.
just being entrepreneurship, gosh, within the same minute, I could be happy, sad,
Yep.
and happy again, all from
Anxious,
one email.
stressed, everything. Yeah, totally. Yes.
So, what have you done to help with stress levels of just
Yeah.
business and life?
Yeah. I mean, I've done a couple of very like focused things. And it's so funny because none of them are complex and none of them are expensive. Number one is I have a life. I love what I do. I think behavior analytic work is incredible. I've loved my entire career and the folks that I've gotten to work with and the families that I've gotten to support. But it is what I do. It is not who I am. And I think a lot of people get their self identity really wrapped up in like this thing around work. And so if something goes wrong at work, which it invariably will, I mean, welcome to life. Like shit's hard.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it can be really challenging to kind of like recover from that. And I also think for behavior analysts, especially because this is a human service profession, that's a helping profession, there is, I think, a pressure that we put on ourselves. And also, I think sometimes a societal pressure to always be doing more, to always be giving, to think that we have this like endless well of compassion. And it's like, well, we don't. And you're still human. And everybody else has all kinds of different interesting stuff going on in their lives that they really care about. And so I think really understanding that in order to show up in the way that I want to and to be an exceptional professional, that means I have to also like have my life outside of it. And that's something that's really important to me. And the other piece is really around like what you asked earlier. It's sleep, eating regularly, making sure I'm hydrated, especially because I live in Arizona. It gets hot down here, and those things sound like so like simple, and on some level they are. But if you are not like resting your body, if you're not nourishing yourself, if you're not hydrated, this completely and totally impacts your decision making. It impacts your ability to manage stress. And so I think learning how to kind of like flow when you need to. And to your point, like, hey, you might have an email and all of these emotions are coming up, and just kind of allowing yourself to feel them and acknowledge them. And like, everyone gets to feel your emotions. It's fine. And I never, try to, tell myself or anyone else like, oh, you're not allowed to be upset or frustrated or angry or joyful. You get to feel everything. Um, but your behavior is your responsibility, and you can feel all the feels, but that doesn't mean it gives you license to be a jerk or lash out or do something that isn't right because of whatever you're feeling. And I think that that's a hard thing sometimes for people to separate, is like, you're allowed to feel everything and your behavior's on you.
Wow, so true. And then I'm just going back to something else you said. You mentioned CASP, and
Hmm.
I just became recently familiar with CASP. So to
Yeah.
hear that you helped start that, I'm just like, okay, I
Yeah.
have to add this on my list of places to go. I can't make it this year. I know it's in
Yeah.
Austin, so I'm gonna look for
Hmm.
it next year because I'm starting to
Hmm.
see on my LinkedIn everybody's talking about it. I don't know if I'm following more people and that's
Yeah.
where they
I
go,
know,
but
like
it's
sometimes you can never tell. You're like, is the algorithm like listening to me on my phone, which is totally creepy, but we also know that's very real. It's like I
yes.
got a cat, and all of a sudden I started getting all these like cat videos in my like TikTok algorithm. I was like, TikTok, what are you doing listening to my phone? Yeah, well, and this is especially because this profession has grown so quickly. It's so important to have people involved and part of organizations and associations that allow you to network, to talk to other folks. Because I think for so many people, especially for people that own ABA businesses in like the early years, it can feel really isolating when you're like, hey, I'm the final say, I'm the boss. And like, that means that I can't have maybe the same kind of like relationships that everybody else does, because like the buck stops with me, and you got to really kind of preserve that um, a little distance, I think, from your staff in order to allow them to be able to take feedback from you, in order to be able to kind of like respect the very, very necessary lines of both like kind of communication and also kind of the org chart, so to speak. Uh, but having a really broad network, especially within the state and or geographic area that you practice in, having a broad network across your discipline, whether that's just in the U.S. or internationally, is just going to allow you to be able to have more support available. I know that if I have a question about something, I can call a number of people in any state that I already know, and they'll pick up the phone and help me. Or if I want to try to get support from someone that I know that if I send an email to a colleague, they're going to answer because we've had that developed relationship, and I would do the same thing for them. And that's so important in terms of like helping to make growing a business and kind of trying to wrap your arms around the complexity of this work easier when you're doing with other people and you feel comfortable and have those relationships where you can call upon folks to help support you and to provide guidance when you need it, and vice versa.
I can imagine your network is very large. I know I heard you speak last year at the Autism Investor Summit, and I
I'll be
was
there
just
again
so
this year. Yeah.
I know I'm skipping this year. I'm into a different business. My wife and I
Yeah.
have a group home for kids with autism. So I said I'm going to skip
Okay.
this year because when I
Hmm.
go, kind of want to have something to talk about. Last year I fit in having an ABA company, but this year I'm
Yeah.
like I want to be able to talk more about what we're doing in our work. So I said I'm gonna skip this year. But I'm
Hmm.
going next year. I really wish they would move it closer to the East Coast, but I know it's going to stay out
Oh, it's
there.
always going to be in LA. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's going to be a cross country trip for you. For me, it's great because it's a 40-minute flight. Like it's,
uh,
but I get it from Florida. It's a jaunt. I know. I'm speaking at the Connecticut Association for Behavior Analysis on Friday morning. Their morning keynote, so I have to fly very early Thursday through Chicago. Because let's be honest, there are no direct flights from the West Coast to Connecticut. So yeah, hopefully there'll be no crappy weather in the Midwest, and I can get there on
And
time.
I'm honestly shocked. Our Jacksonville airport just got a direct
Hmm.
flight from here to
Hmm.
Phoenix. I was like, Phoenix, really? Okay, so direct
Yeah.
flight. I'm all for it.
Hey. Oh
So my
yeah.
last question, um, gosh, trying to gather my thoughts. So what is something that a difficulty that you faced in business, and how did you get over whatever that was?
Yeah. Um, I think probably like a lot of clinician founders in this space, I had good clinical skills. I was able to, I think, do a really effective job of like recruiting and training clinical folks. But I didn't have a lot of the business background because that wasn't my background. Similar to
Mm,
you, I had a special ed undergrad, even though all my professors in undergrad were behavior analysts. So I actually graduated with a kind of emphasis in functional assessment, which was great. But there were definitely times in my business and a couple of like really intensive times where I wasn't sure that we were going to make it because I didn't have a really clear understanding of how essential positive cash flow was to my business, how essential maintaining specific margins were to my business. And so I had to be willing to like ask for support and be humbled and, take a pay cut myself and work very, very hard to fix those. And there's, I think there's a lot of other people that have been in the same position where, we're out here trying to do good work. We think that we are, but you don't know what you don't know. And so I always encourage business owners that are clinicians that don't necessarily have like a financial management background or like an HR background to really make sure that they hire people in that have those skills or have an advisory board or a board of directors to make sure that they can avoid some of those errors, because for me it almost cost me my business and I was able to right the ship, but it was very painful. Yet, like anything in life, you grow in the pain, right? Like none of us are growing when things are perfect. We're growing when we're like, this is horrible and I hate it. So very painful experience. Ultimately, incredibly helpful. Allows me, I think, to operate at a totally different level now. But I definitely wished I would have been more focused on that piece earlier, so maybe the lesson didn't have to be as hard as it was.
I can totally agree with that. I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, it's not just me. People have been through this.
Mm-mm.
And that's why I love
Yeah.
doing these interviews because a lot of times I just think like this is just happening to me, but then I hear other people that have
Mm-mm.
been through it,
Yeah.
they've made it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, gosh, I hope you guys caught all that information. That financial piece is very big and important, and that's something that I've learned on this business I'm currently in. I've been very
Hmm.
cautious and looking at things that I didn't think about the first business. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful I went through it. I can't say I enjoyed the pain, but
Hmm.
yes, you grow from it.
But you grow. Yeah.
But Sarah, just thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Behavioral Business Blueprint. I will definitely stay in contact. Can you
Yeah.
tell people where they can reach you, whether it's is a website or is there on LinkedIn?
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's so funny. I post on LinkedIn maybe like once a month whenever I get like a bee in my bonnet, so to speak. Like I got like I was irate about like working women and like, how we like totally don't support them, even though the behavior analytic field is made of 86.7% women.
Hmm.
So you can find me on LinkedIn. And sometimes, I mean, it's usually not a rant. It's more just like, hey, like, let's think about this. Like, how can we do this better type of stuff. I'm not really into like the shaming and blaming of people. I think that's not really helpful. Um, I'm off Facebook. I went off like 3.5 years ago and I've never looked back. Like Arthur, I was like, I'm done here. So you can't find me there. And I'm on Instagram. And I think you could maybe search my name, or I told you like my Instagram handles adventures _of _Sarah. And that's more just like fun stuff. But LinkedIn is definitely for like the business stuff. So I'm more serious.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, you're welcome. This is fun.